Welcome to the Creative Warriors Podcast, the female heart and soul of photography. All right, we are back with Lindsay
Herkert,
a portrait photographer. We are going to talk about the voice of doubt today and all of the inner challenges for the most part. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Good. And how are you ready?
I'm totally ready. Yes.
Okay. Can you share any insights or advice on overcoming self-doubt, or some people will call it impostor syndrome in the industry?
So what I think about self-doubt and imposter syndrome is we usually feel this when we are pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. And so if you're not pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and you're not at a point of vulnerability, then you're not growing as an artist. So my whole thing is when I'm in the beginning stages of trying something new or just challenging myself, I try not to consume other people's art because there's times where it inspires me, and then there's other times if I'm not in the right state of mind where it makes me feel not good enough. So, and it's funny because usually when you're doing something new, that's when you start looking at other people's stuff. So I really try to consciously not compare myself when I'm in a vulnerable state of mind, when I'm trying something new.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. The reason I could talk about this is because I'm creating that class or this course, and I started in the spring, and it's crazy how much imposter syndrome I was feeling with it. Like, am I good enough to share this knowledge? And then I start looking at all these other, educators, and I'm like, well, I'm not like her. And you just go down a very bad rabbit hole. So instead, you have to figure out like how to create support for yourself, whether it's joining a group of people or reading something inspiring, like we were just talking about before we started. Just how to find support for yourself to push through whatever, challenge you've given yourself.
I appreciate the fact that you shared that you have a self-awareness. So you're recognizing that you're having these feelings, which it takes a lot of inner strength to be able to do that, to say, hey, look, I'm feeling bad. What do I need to do differently?
Right. Yes. And sometimes, I just tell my kids, like, if you're scared or you just have to acknowledge that you feel that way and just move forward anyway. It's just part of just being comfortable, being uncomfortable,
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah, totally. But when we're feeling that way, that's not when you want to go compare yourself to others. I think it's probably like when you're vulnerable, like that's not a good idea.
Yeah, that's feeding the wrong
yes
lulls,
exactly.
So how do you maintain your sense of authenticity, integrity in those moments? Obviously you step away from other people. That's a huge step, I would think. Is there, what else in terms of keeping your own genuineness?
So I think I was going to draw back from some things we spoke about earlier in previous episodes. Just keeping a list of accomplishments or challenges that I've overcome or hard times that I've pushed through. I just like looking at that list. It gives me a boost when I need it. As far as photography, just having a clear idea of who I am, like what I talked about in a previous episode, having your 3 words that define your style. So you just kind of have your guidelines that you can, sometimes it's just self-talk, reminding yourself about these things, reminding yourself who you are, and just having those things readily available. I think it's just important.
Is it kind of like a center? So,
Yeah.
when you know what your center is as a human and what is of value to you, which projects into your work. So when you're feeling those things, if you remind yourself of what centers you, it helps you get back into that place.
That is a very good way of summing up what I just said. Yes. I think that's perfect. I like that. A center. That's very good.
There was an interesting thing I saw somebody do online, and I started doing it, but every year she comes up with a new word for the year coming up.
I've seen that. Yeah.
So I started doing that last year, and centered actually was my word.
Was it? Oh, that's so good. I love that.
For this year, it was centered. So, I mean,
yeah,
it's, there's so many neat techniques that people use, and when we share them with other people, it helps us build our arsenal, so to speak, of success.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I completely agree.
Okay, now I know you had to have experienced, well, you talked about ClickPro. Did you get ClickPro the first time you applied?
I did, but that was because I took very long time to apply. I think it was like over a year and a half of building that and having people look at my portfolio, of building the portfolio, having lots of people review the portfolio,
give you the feedback,
give me the feedback. Yes.
Okay. All right.
But I did barely make it.
Have you ever experienced in this industry criticism or rejection?
Sure, of course.
So how do you cope with that? I know it's part of the industry, really.
It is. Usually I try to, well, like if it's a client, for example, I haven't had very many clients that I know of that don't like their photos, but I can think of 2 over the past, 10 years. And I will get on the phone with them. It's usually they'll send me a text, or the one I'm thinking of sent me a text. And I said, well, let's talk. So I immediately say, I feel like the photos that I gave you were exactly what I represented that I would deliver. So can you please tell me what it is that you don't like? And I had to keep diving down. She didn't like her clothes, the way her clothes fit her. And it took a long time to figure that out, And so because I just have 100%, that to me, that wasn't my fault, because I provided a style guide. And, when she pulled up, she had she was a chef. So she had her chef coat, all, had flour on it and it was crumpled. So then the next time we shot, she ordered a new chef coat that fit her tighter, which is something that I write in my style guide. Make sure your clothes fit tight, make sure and try them on before, so I always, with rejection or complaints or anything like that, I always try and dial into and isolate the issue with clients, and just recognize that I can't please everyone. The more clients I have, there's just going to be some people that it's just not a good fit. I really try to do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen, but it's going to happen. And that's okay.
And this may sound like a funny question, but one of the reasons I haven't gotten into portraits is because
people are scary.
It is scary for me. And I think that I think it's easy, and I shouldn't say that because it might not be easy, but I think it's easier to photograph beautiful people and make them look good.
Mhm.
When you have people who have self-image issues to start with,
Yes.
and they may have more weight because they just had a baby or whatever, their hormones are
Right.
out of whatever, but they just don't look the way they want to or the way they
Right.
used to. And I'm talking about myself in this conversation. So when people take pictures of me, all I see is something I don't want to see because that isn't
Yeah.
me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that is a very hard thing to navigate because it's not just about the photographs. It's also about the emotions of the other person
Absolutely.
responding to the photographs.
Usually that is the case. Yes. Um, and I don't think there's really a way, you know, it's, I really haven't had, I can think of two people that happened with, and both times it was the way their clothes fit. And when I did a reshoot, completely different wardrobe, you know?
Probably different angles, maybe different.
Yeah,
You might
I
zoom
feel
in
like,
and not out,
yeah, I
I
feel like
had a
I'm pretty
headshot
sensitive.
done and I asked him to, because I didn't want my whole body in the picture. I really didn't.
Yes, yes.
And he delivered nothing but,
Oh.
and I was like, so I just cropped,
Yeah, yeah,
part I don't want to share out.
yeah, yeah.
But that's okay.
I
It
do
was
try to listen, like if people have sensitive, and I always I have a place for people to write, like, please let me know anything that you want me to know.
please don't
That would
see
help
my
me.
larger than normal rear end.
Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like the way I take the pictures and edit the pictures most of the time, and just with lighting and everything, people love the way they look in them. Um, it's just every once in a while, those two
Well,
people.
and natural light and real
Yes.
emotion makes
Yes.
such a difference in terms
A
of making
hundred
somebody
percent.
look good. When you're posing and you're, doing all that weird
Yeah.
stuff, nobody
It's
looks good.
awkward. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Super
awkward. Yeah.
awkward.
And
Yeah.
we don't look good.
Yeah.
So
But to come back to your original question about rejection, I mean, I kind of went on a tangent about clients, but I think that when things don't work out the way I want them to work out, I always, of course I'll feel sad, but I also just try to think what the lesson is. And I always come back to, I really believe that universe is conspiring in my favor. And so for whatever reason, that wasn't meant to be at that time. Maybe it'll happen later. Maybe it won't, even when we moved and that was so hard for me, it was still felt like at first I was devastated because I had built up my business in San Diego and that was so much work. But then I looked at it as a clean slate and I built it so much better the second time, So,
yeah, you
that's,
didn't have to go through the same challenges because you already overcame them. So you knew
yeah,
the path was easier the second time, I would think.
yes, yes. So,
And you probably keyed in on more of the directions you want to go versus directions
exactly.
you don't want to go.
Yes, yes.
So rejection and criticism can be a leap to growth.
Oh,
What
yes.
I'm hearing.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes. If you can look at it that way. Of course, there's always emotion involved at first. But I always thought, when I was getting feedback on my portfolio from people, the photos that I got angriest about, from someone's criticism, those were the ones that I needed to pay the most attention to. Whenever I had a very emotional reaction, I'm like, there's something happening here, So
yes. Maybe your heart was a little more in that picture or
yeah, always,
yep.
always.
Or it was your own kid and they, made some comment or
Yeah, no, but it is. It's like usually one that I would love. And I'm like, what? How could they say that? But it is like you had the mom goggles on or whatever,
mom goggles. I like that. Excellent. So we talked about the need for, when we're being creative, we have a need to feed ourselves creatively. So what are some of the things that you do to help cultivate and maintain and inspire you personally in your work?
So I feel like photography is definitely a reflection. It just kind of follows along with what's going on in my life. And I will fully admit that the reason I got into it was because of my kids. And, I was one of those moms that completely like followed them around when they were little, and I would plan adventures just so I could take the pictures. And then they started growing up, and my oldest one didn't want pictures taken of him anymore, which is completely understandable. And so I had to back off quite a bit, and it just wasn't quite the same. But then I started to think, how can I incorporate this into our lives again without being obnoxious or having my kids hate me? And I thought of this project, like just this own little project for myself called Never Board on a Board, because we are a big snowboarding family and surfing, and we like to do all that stuff. And so obviously now we live in Austin, so it's not part of our daily
snowboard there, isn't it?
Yeah. But we do go every year to Colorado. And so I try to just think of creative ways to capture the kids and just on boards, and it's just a little project. It's not huge at all. But then I was doing that, and I thought, oh my gosh, I should bring this into my work. We live near a lake. And so I started just this past summer, like just a passion project. I didn't discount because I don't believe in discounting, but I asked families that I knew that had boats if I could take their photos for free, because I wanted the chance to play and not feel pressure at all. And I didn't want to discount it and then have them tell someone else, oh, she's doing it for, $100 or something. I just made it clear, like, this is for me. You get the photos, because I wanted to see if it's something I wanted to add as an offer. And I wanted to see how it would play out. What, again, like the environment, the lighting, all of that stuff. And so I think next summer I will add it like on the lake sessions.
Neat.
And I think it's fun for families that have teenagers that don't necessarily want to show up in a field. It's a lot easier when you have little kids running around like toddlers, but teenagers are hard. But if they're out there wakeboarding and having a good time, then I get to capture that genuineness. So I always try just to pay attention to what's happening in life and not force it, and try to feel like how I can just change and create something different for myself, so I'm not just stuck doing the same thing. So that's probably my example for that, how I stay inspired.
That's a neat example.
Upgrade your experience with our premium subscription. Enjoy exclusive features, enhanced content, and seamless extended interviews. Elevate your enjoyment and personal growth with our premium subscription today. If you enjoy the Creative Warrior podcast, the female heart and soul of photography, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Thank you.
I like how you understand that, sometimes we have to practice. And even though we're in business, we need collaborators to practice. So the people that you're asking, can I basically you practice on your family, and you can have it, and then I can, see
have freedom.
Exactly. But that's a collaboration that we all need, no matter what world of photography we're trying to kind of branch in or see, even explore whether we want to. We need those few people to basically say, yes, I'm willing to collaborate with you on that.
Yeah.
And
And just keep it playful.
yeah,
It's fun to play and have fun with it. And it's neat. Photography is so cool because there are no limits, you can make it whatever you want.
so you brought up an interesting thing. So when you have, we're talking about the inner voice and the inner battles,
Mhm.
but playfulness is a huge piece. I have seen, at least, I know for me, and I've seen in a lot of other photographers. How does playfulness help you personally to deal with all that, all the potential negative things that could stop a photographer?
Right. Well, I think it's so important to keep at the forefront, Um, when it wasn't playful for my son anymore, I had to listen to him and let go. Um, I do think letting yourself be playful and creating opportunities like how I did with like the never bored on a board um, is so vital for keeping it fresh and um, growing. I think it's just being playful and making sure that you create opportunities for yourself to be playful is imperative to continuing to grow. It's hard to make the time because you know, sometimes you're just straight up in survival mode. You have a family, you're running a business, and entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. It is a lot of work, a
Yeah, it
lot more
is.
work than anyone thinks it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it is hard to create opportunities for yourself. But I think if you don't put a ton of pressure on yourself, like that never bored on a board for my family, I knew we would just do that when we were in San Diego and when we went snowboarding. And it's not something that I feel I have to do every month. It's just something intentional when we are playing together. And the kids are all on board with it because they're doing something cool. And it doesn't have to be like a daily occurrence or a monthly occurrence. It could just be something throughout the year that I interweave into our lives. Just not putting so much pressure on ourselves, So,
Yeah, good advice. Good advice. How do you stay motivated and continue to find new inspiration?
um, I think what I talked about in an earlier episode, if I have an itch that I need to scratch, like that, never bored on a board, I had that idea, or that feeling that I needed to create a course, I try to listen to myself, I try to just listen to the ideas so that I'm not just doing the same thing over and over. A few years ago, I thought about incorporating branding into my business, branding photography, and it scared me. If it scares me, it's usually like, okay, move forward with this. And that's what keeps me motivated, is starting new projects or adding on to my business and usually the scarier they are, the better they end up being for me.
I heard recently
So,
that, and I'm not 100% sure if I agreed with this philosophy, but I would be interested to see what you think. He was one of the instructors in a class was saying that you need to niche down, niche, to be
mhm.
an expert in something. And I was like, I would be so bored if all I did was one little minute
Mhm.
thing. I mean, I love macro photography, but that was all I did. Even though there's a million different things you can shoot, I would still feel bored.
Yeah. I
For
I
me
agree.
personally. So, how do you feel?
I think when I think about niching down in my business, I think about I do think it's important to sort of have almost like what I talked about with those 3 words that define your style. I think with your business, you have to kind of know what type of person you want to attract. And then within that, you can have branches, right, of your business. Um,
And that's your
But
marketing background talking.
Yeah.
Know your customer.
Yeah. I do think it's important to sort of have an umbrella that's recognizable, right?
Right.
And then within that, and sort of guidelines for yourself, for your business that keep you, recognizable in the same line. But then within that, you can have different offerings,
Okay.
And I do think it would be so boring to just be like, just for me, just a family photographer. I do like to offer different things. But I have noticed, like, if I have too many things on my website, too many prices, too many, I try to keep it pretty simple. Like I just this morning before we jumped on the phone, I took off on the lake that portfolio because it's winter now and I don't want to deal with that. So it'll be like a summer thing. So I do feel like it can get overwhelming if you have all these different things that you offer on your website. I do think you have to kind of niche down a little bit.
Especially well, there's a difference between your exterior persona, your business persona, and then what you would maybe shoot for the fun of it. You know what I mean?
Right. True. Very
so
true.
There's and definitely the public face.
Yes.
The more complicated it gets, the more
overwhelming.
Yes. And people just leave.
Yeah, exactly. The good example of this is I will shoot seniors, especially if I have photographed their family before, but I don't have it on my website. I don't advertise it. I have it as a hidden page. If somebody asks about it, then I send them that page, but it's not necessarily what I want to be known for.
Gotcha.
I will do it, but it's not what I'm actively seeking. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Do you think I think in portrait photography, this is a completely generalized statement. I could be completely off base, but I find a lot of females, and that may be just because that's the world I know, and I tend to draw to on Instagram and stuff. I tend to I'm drawn to females doing work, not so I could be wrong. But do you feel there's any challenges specific to women in this industry from your perspective?
I think it's hard for me to say. I feel like for myself, maybe there's self-imposed challenges.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's necessarily being a woman, but more like a people pleaser. And, a good example might be I'm a photographer and I'm at my youngest son, who's 9, his little flag football game. So I'm taking pictures of him. Then I feel like, I should get some pictures of my other friend's son and send them to her. And it sounds like nothing, but it is work and it takes time. And I think that's kind of more like my husband is always, what are you doing? He's more black and white, and I'm just always trying to help or give my gift, and I think by doing that, you kind of are seeing it almost devalues my business in a way, because I'm like being a mom tog out there, and then if that same friend saw my pricing on my website, she'd be like, what? So,
I would think she would be like, thank you.
Yeah, no, they are. I mean, if I do that, I'm just saying it's, I don't know. It's something I do to myself, just being, just a people pleaser is probably more so than a woman, but I think women tend to be people pleasers more than men.
Yeah. And we struggle with that, I think, more than men do. You make a good point, though, because sometimes we want to do something just for the gift of it.
Yes.
And that should not be devalued. I mean, you know what I mean?
Right.
If you want to take a picture of your friend's, child and do a good job of it and give it to her, that's a gift.
It is. Yes.
So it's, I don't think, obviously if it consumes your time, then maybe you have to reevaluate your giving process. But I think that is not a bad thing. I mean, I do.
It gives you joy to do it.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And there's value in that.
There is. And I think as long as it's giving you joy and it doesn't feel like it becomes an obligation or something like that, right?
Right. And it's balanced.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I do think that too.
Okay.
I feel like it's as long as it's giving you energy and joy, then it's a positive thing. But as an industry as a whole and being a female, I feel like it's a great industry for females because, again, I see us all lifting each other up. It is wonderful to be able to own your own business and be creative at the same time. I see my daughter watching me and following me and so excited for me. And it just makes me happy to see. I mean, I can see her owning her own business one day, and I'm so happy I can give her all the shortcuts I know and teach her how to value herself and price herself and, set up boundaries for herself. I guess that's the word I was looking for is setting up boundaries for yourself,
Yeah, very necessary, especially when you work for yourself in your own house. I mean, there's multiple levels there. I know I've been a self-employed person for, goodness gracious, almost 30 years. And on and off, I had, real jobs, but mom, stay at home, worked at home. And of course, as they grow and change, the whole process changes. But the one thing that I think now that my older children are much older, the one thing I learned that I didn't know would happen, it was kind of a byproduct of the whole process, is my children, all of them, I have 4, they all have a very strong work ethic.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And kids in their generations do not, generally speaking, which is a horrible generalization, but it's true. But they are very successful in work because of their strong work ethic. And they learned that watching me work.
Yes. Yes.
They saw what work looked like, and it's not always fun, and you have to put in boundaries, but you give 100% and then you give it to your family. So they saw all that. So you're teaching your children valuable lessons without even knowing it.
I know. I do. I think it's so fun. Every once in a while I'll recognize it. And I just think, gosh, that's so cool.
It is. It's a nice perk that you weren't necessarily expecting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Of course, they have to learn the word no pretty young.
Yes. Yes.
I used to have a sign on my door when some of them were little. If you're not bleeding, dying, or I forget what the other one was, but there were 3 things. Don't interrupt me.
Yeah.
It was just during certain times, but it was pretty funny.
I need that.
Okay, so to wrap up this episode, can you share any personal experiences or moments of inspiration that has influenced your approach to portrait photography? Kind of that goes in that, overcoming that challenge.
Let's see. Inspiration for portrait photography. I think my whole approach with photography has just come from more of a documenting side. And I just like that. I'm always just looking at the world almost through a camera lens now, and even when I'm not taking pictures, I'm taking them in my mind. So I just love that. I feel like I'm inspired all the time. It just with beautiful light or, just someone's smile. Like I feel like I can just recognize those moments more now because I'm a photographer, and it's sort of just like this circle, like it just life and photography plays off one another. So
I think that, you hit a really good point, because one of the great things about, for me anyway, photography is that I mean, I used to see these things. I mean, I think naturally I saw when I look back at my just iPhone pictures from, years ago, before I had a real camera,
Right.
or a big girl camera, whatever you want to call it. I was always seeing the same things. I'm
Yes.
just now honing in on them, and I'm seeing them so much more. And just
Clearly.
driving down the road, it's like,
Yes.
oh, I just get like, there's nothing but beauty around us. And
Yes.
it's so easy to lose that at work
Yes.
and at life. And it's just everywhere. It's just I have this cool thing. In the morning, I have coffee, and just the way the light comes through my window, it gives me joy. It's a silly thing, but I love it.
I know. I totally agree. It's funny. About a year ago, we were driving downtown, and it was at sunset, and the light was beautiful. And my kids are like, "Oh, Mom," and they were teasing me. They're like, "Do you need to pull over and take a picture?" And in my head, I was like, "Oh, I'm so glad that you recognize that is picture worthy." So I do. I think it is so fun to be trained that your eye sees these things now, It's just, it is all inspiring.
Yeah,
it is.
And I
such
think
a gift.
When we share our work, we share that gift.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yes.
And hopefully other people will start to see what we see, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing how you fought through your inner struggles and some of the techniques you've used. And we are coming back one more time with a little bit more on being mindful in the heart and the eye. And we'll talk about what that means when we come back next week.
All right. Sounds great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Hi, this is Lindsay, and I'm so excited to share details about a course I'm releasing this fall. It's called Systems for Success. It's a 3-month mastermind for the portrait photographer who is ready to scale her business to consistent 4- and 5-figure months. It includes 6 modules that teach Google Ads, setting up your business, pricing for profit, effective marketing strategies, keys to successful website design, SEO, and a great client experience. The mastermind part includes a Slack channel for questions, website and portfolio review, 2 group coaching calls a month, and homework review. It releases on Black Friday, which is November 24th. And I am so excited to help you build the portrait photography business of your dreams that is profitable and sustainable. If you're interested in being a beta tester for Systems for Success, you can contact me at my email, which is listed below. Or if you want to learn more about the course, you can look at the website link, also located in the notes below.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Creative Warriors. We want to thank Lindsay Herkert for sharing her heart and her soul with us. We hope you enjoyed our fun conversation and gained some valuable takeaways. In our next episode, get ready to learn more with Lindsay. Remember to subscribe or follow The Creative Warriors on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. If you have any thoughts, suggestions, or questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at arielfaithphotography.com. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep the conversation going. Stay curious and have a happy artistic journey. Thank you for listening to the Creative Warriors podcast, the female heart and soul of photography. See you next episode.